What's happening, guys? Today we're out on the Surron Light BX down at Split Rock, and I guess I'm gonna talk about how it's going after 700 kilometers. 760 actually. So far, no problems to report. I haven't adjusted the chain yet. Probably time to do that. Got a little bit of paint wear from my boots right here. Just happening. I noticed the shock was seeping a little bit of oil, but it seems like it stopped. Getting a lot better at flying this thing, that's for sure. Another thing is this fork was bad from factory. There's a clunk in the leg, this one, and they agreed to replace it for me, and I'm doing the work myself. Another thing that I'm not too happy with are the brakes, and they took forever to embed. Not sure why. The rear one is okay, but I'm getting a weird grinding from the front one, just like at low speed. Again, the strength is basically fine, but I can feel both of the brakes are pulsating, like the rotors are warped, so I lose points there. I'm not sure why. It seems like multiple problems with the same system. These are Surron specific brakes. They have the little hourglass so you can see if it's bled. I like to face them way down so you can't see them. Yeah, on to the next spot. Another thing I don't like on this bike is the speedometer is off by quite a bit. You can see it. So it says 30 on the speedometer. We're actually going 24 or 26. This probably just sounds like a video where I'm complaining about the bike like non-stop, like I hate it or something. That's not true at all. Very happy with this. I like that it has motorcycle wheels and a lot of bicycle components. I have a lot of experience with bicycles, but not really any with motorcycles. I will be upgrading the tires eventually. 90 wide can fit. I think 100 wide will hit the chain. And my biggest complaint on this bike is probably the seat. From factory, it is leaning forward too far, putting pressure on my tailbone, which I don't like. I ended up building these little spacers, 1-inch lift for the front, and it's helping, but it's not quite perfect. So I got a seat coming in the mail. It's a generic ATV seat. The measurements seem to be about the same. So I'm gonna retrofit that to this bike, and it should be pretty good. Another thing I don't like is how the headlight is always on and you can't turn it off. No high beam. I'm going to be changing that though. Unfortunately, the 12 volt DC to DC converter on this bike is limited to 3 amps, which isn't going to be enough to run the stuff I want to run. I'm going to be putting a bigger light on it. That'd be my high beam. And some heated grips. Everybody I know with this bike has removed this rear splash guard, and I'm leaving it on for the wet season. It works great. I feel like I'm not even in Calgary. Jeez. I ride by this every day. Probably 500 times ridden by this.